use Money Tracker for us to be done code review. So I'm gonna review the first two code, which is register user and login PHP, which they contain the same vulnerabilities that I'm going to talk about now. The first vulnerabilities is password hashing. So as we can see here, our password stored as a plain text. This is dangerous because if our database being hacked, it can instantly expose our password to the attackers without any obstacles. Of course, it's dangerous because attackers can get to know our password and they can log in into our account on the other platforms such as TikTok, Facebook, and many more. So if we reuse the same password over and over as what we always do, because we tend to forget our password, they can take a guess on the pattern of our password and they can access to our bank account. What we can do to mitigate this is by implement the password hashing. So this is password hashing that I put in the updated register user code. This password hashing, it doesn't say that it will block or anything, but if our database is being hacked, the attacker doesn't know our password instantly. They need to decrypt our password because password hashing is being encrypted by the military decrypt. They will not get our password instantly, as simple as that. So we move on to the next vulnerabilities, which is SQL injection. So we all informed that SQL injection is one of the most dangerous web application vulnerabilities. So what does they do? SQL injection is actually can steal our data from database, and then they can modify our data, such as deleting our data or inserting our new data. Okay, so what can we do to mitigate SQL injection is with the prepared statement. This is what I highlighted. This is the prepared statement that I put for the updated on PHP. So we can see that the question mark here, this is the placeholder for the user input. Bin param is the we attach with the user input. Prepared statement is actually could helping in separating SQL command and the user input. Prepared statement make our system a bit more intelligent because they can separate between the which one is the SQL command and which one is the user input. They will not get confused. I think could not make our system being down again, correct? So this is one of the ways to prepare our system to become intelligent. As what I know in my syllabus, I have learned that one cheat sheet of the SQL injection, which is the login form. The user can enter or once equals one as an email and password as anything, such as anything, and then they will register to your system as the user. So it is very dangerous because it is applicable to any system if we don't use the prepared statement as mentioned.
Today I'll walk you through a code review of the MonT Tracker project, focusing on two major security concerns, which is input validation issues and session management issues. So before we start, I'll give you a brief explanation on what is input validation. So basically, input validation means that all user input is correct, expected, and safe before using it. Without validation, attackers can inject harmful input or cause logic failures. Okay, so next, what is session management? So session management ensures a user's identity is securely tracked during login session. So weak handling can lead to session fixation, hijacking, or even unauthorized access. Let's now go through each file. So the first file that we identify that has input validation issue is registeruser.php. Here, as you can see, there's no validation on email format, no check for password strength, and direct use of input without trimming. So here's the modified version. So as you can see, after it modified, it will prevent invalid emails and enforces strong passwords. Here, we already ensure that the users only can input a valid email. Next, we have login.php. So login.php categorized in input validation and session management. So login.php here, as you can see, what's wrong with this code? So in this code, the SQL injection risk, user input inquiry, and then there's plain text password comparison and no session regeneration. As you can see here is the modified version. So after it has been modified, the prevent session fixation and validates login safely using hashed passwords. We're gonna move on into our third file, which is changepassword.php. So changepassword.php is here we have two categories: vulnerability, which is input validation issues, and partial session use. So I'll just explain on the input validation here. So here, as you can see, the original code. And what's wrong with this code is there's no check if the current password is correct, and there's no minimum length check on the new password. So it might be dangerous because if the password is correct or not, so hackers can easily enter password. And here's the modified version. So the modified version prevents weak password and confirm user is authorized to change password. And next we have updateuser.php. It is categorized as input validation issue, and as you can see here in the original code, there's no validation on the email, and it is unsafe if special characters are used. So as you can see, here's the modified version. So modified version will ensure that only proper formatted emails are saved. And last, add transaction. As you can see here in add transaction, there's no validation if amount is numeric and no check for empty or malicious input. We modified it into these codes. These codes will prevent logic bugs and ensure reliable data input. As you can see here, this code also will ensure that users can only input a valid number.
So what is SSS and CFRF? Cross-site scripting SSS is a security vulnerability that allows attackers to inject malicious scripts into web pages viewed by other users. This script can steal session cookies, redirect users, or modify content. This is the example code, and attacker might submit this. And then what is CSRF? Process request forgery tricks a login user into performing unintended actions like changing password or submitting forms. By exploiting their session, usually through a malicious link or form on another site, the user is authenticated, but the action was used before and after the Discord login. For SSS, there are three PHP examples that I put the SSS which are is PHP, edit profile PHP, and dashboard PHP. First, this PHP shows income expense table. We put SSS on line 36 and line 38. Second, edit profile PHP shows form fields. We put the SSS on line 37 and PHP shows balance display. We put the SSS on line CSRF. There are three PHP examples that I put the CSRF, which are Athirah PHP, change password PHP, and edit profile PHP. First, Athirah PHP. We put the CRS on line 15. Why SSF and CSRF protection is important? SSS protection is important because prevent attackers from injecting scripts into your site, and then protect user from session theft, redirection of input forms, and then maintains user trust and system. CSRF protection is important because ensures every form submission or critical action is intentional, and then prevent attackers from submitting fake requests as a login user. And then the last one stops unauthorized changes like passwords resets or data next. What happens if we don't implement SSS and CSRF? Without SSS protection, attacker can inject like this code. So basically, this can steal user session and impersonate. Users may lose access, money, or personal data. Without CSRF protection, attackers can send hidden form like this code, and then user is tricked into submitting it while login, and then their password or data gets changed without their consent. That's all for me. Thank you.
We continue with an authorization flow. An authorization flow happens when the system doesn't properly check whether a user is allowed to perform a certain action, like deleting data. In simple terms, it means a user is allowed to do something they are not supposed to do. Okay, you can see at line 7 on the left coding. Okay, here is example. This code lets a user delete transaction based on an ID from the URL. But here's the problem. There's no check to confirm if the transaction actually belongs to the person who's logged in. If I know someone else's transaction ID, I can delete their data. That's not just a mistake, it's a secret. Okay. Any login user can delete any transaction just by casing or modifying the ID in the URL. Now, at the right coding, this is how we fix it at line 8. Now, the delete action only works if both the ID and the email match, meaning the transaction must belong to the login user. Without that match, nothing gets deleted. This change stop unauthorized access and protect every user data. It's a simple check, but absolutely essential for keeping your app secure. So authorization isn't just about login. It's about making sure user can only manage what theirs. Secure code starts with a responsibility check. Okay, next is URL output escaping. Okay, URL output escaping is the process of cleaning or encoding any data that goes into a URL. In simple terms, before you insert it into a link, you need to make sure it's safe. Otherwise, attackers can inject harmful code, fake the page, or even perform SSS attacks. Okay, you can see here at line 52 and 58. Okay, these lines create a delete button with a link that includes the transaction ID from the database. This link works, but here's the problem. The code puts the ID directly into the URL without any escaping. That means if someone managed to change the ID to include special character or code, it could break the HTML or worse, inject script into the page. Okay, let's fix that. Okay, just you can see here at line 40 and line 74. Now we are using HTML special charts, a PHP function that escapes special characters and convert them into harmless code. This protects our page from being broken and shields users from any potential cross-site scripting. It's a small change, but it has a big impact on security. Now, even if someone tries to inject something tricky into the ID, the browser treats it as plain text and nothing dangerous happens. By escaping output properly, you keep your users safe and your application strong every character wins.